Children need to wrestle with their fathers. Raising 5 kids, one of the things I realized is all my kids love to climb on me, love to jump on me, love to wrestle with me, their dad. At times, it could be a little much when I was tired, but most of the time, I loved it. It was the best. And as they've grown older, I'm realizing now that they don't want to do that for obvious reasons, how much I miss it. See, the thing is, kids love to wrestle with their fathers. And researchers have found that it's actually important for their development. Research has shown that kids who are able to wrestle with their fathers actually have an advantage in their development. They're able to process emotions better. They're able to think through things more effectively. And of course, it helps with their engagement in physical activity also. And so it's an important thing for children to learn how to wrestle with their fathers, because children find their own strength by discovering and engaging with the strength of their fathers. Maybe another way to say this is we find our identity not in who we think we are, but by engaging with the strength of our fathers and their identity. And so it's so important that we understand this not only in the physical realm with young kids and being parents, but also that we understand this as a spiritual principle also, that in order for us to discover our identity, we have to engage and oftentimes wrestle with God in His strength. It's so important for who we are as believers. In fact, it's outlined in the story of Jacob. In Genesis 32, Jacob is in a transition. He's going from a servant in his uncle's household to being his own man, leading his own family, fulfilling his own promises in God, and going into a new land. And he does this by crossing a river, and then at night, as he's camped out, he's encountered by God, who doesn't just tell him who he is, and who doesn't just share with him ideas of who he's supposed to be, but he actually wrestles him. It says that God wrestles with Jacob. And it says in the story that God actually breaks Jacob's hip, or he wrenches his hip. And the idea there is that we actually discover God's strength in our weakness, that when we engage with His strength, when we wrestle with God, we actually just see how weak we actually are before Him, but we're reassured that we actually belong to a God that is much stronger than we could ever be. And so we discover, just as Jacob did, that our identity is not in what we can do or what we think of ourselves, or it's not found in our capabilities. Our identity is actually found in God, and the only way to discover that is by wrestling with the Father. And so Jacob wrestles with God. He is ending the wrestling match, but Jacob demands that God blesses him. God wrenches his hip, showing him that his strength is magnified through Jacob's weakness. And then he changes his name from Jacob, the deceiver, to Israel, the one God contends with. And so we see that Jacob's identity is rooted in God's strength. But Jacob only discovers that by wrestling with God. And so this is something we have to learn to do perpetually as believers. We have to wrestle with God. So there are things in your life that you don't understand. There are new seasons that you're heading into that might be scary. There are things that you wish didn't happen. And we have to take these questions, these unresolved issues, to God and actually tell Him about them, invite Him in, and let Him wrestle with us over these issues. It's really important. In fact, when we do this, we actually experience His grace in a new transformative way that we never could if we just tried to stuff it down, ignore how we feel like religion tells us to. We actually get stuck in ourselves instead of moving forward in His strength. So let me say it one more time. You've got to learn how to wrestle with God. I hope this is an encouraging message for you today. I love you so much. See you next week.